everybody. Just got to wait for Darren to come in. 6 people already. Excellent. Nice to see you. So, what's been going on with everybody? I've got a few things to let people know what's been going on, but we'll wait until the live stream starts for that. I think Darren's on his way in. Yay! And
we're better at this.
You're live.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Well, that worked.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's see. We got about 6 people in chat already. Wow.
I know, yeah. They were already there when I come in. They're keen. Oh, you got the mug tonight. I haven't got the mug. Unfortunately, I'm doing the American thing, Coca-Cola. Sorry.
Yeah, I just got some tea. I mean, it's midday for me, so I just had lunch.
Okay. Hi, Darren. Evening.
Hello, Darren.
That's it. People are starting to come in. Excellent. Loud and proud, guys. Absolutely. Okay, so what's new for you this week, Darren?
Well, I put out a video on, I believe, Friday with the doing compression and leak down tests.
Yep.
Just a real basic overview. And the car I have just over my left shoulder, I actually have a follow-up video coming out this week because this engine here has really good compression and leak down numbers. So I want people to have an example of what a good engine should be like.
Okay, cool.
But mostly just been doing service work over here.
Excellent.
Bit of
All
glass.
right. Yeah, hi both. Amid's lad. Hi, Adrian and Darren. Yeah, no problem. Tony Harmer. Hello, guys. Nice to see you again. Hi there. What have I been doing?
What have you been doing?
Apart from wrecking my own car, but that's another story. Right, yes, YouTube. So what have we done? So there was the deep dive on tuning the twin carbs or on tuning that Cooper, which went down very well, I have to admit. So people clearly like that format. So obviously I need to do more of that, which I will endeavour to do at the opportune moment. And the last video I put up was the first part of the tuning weekend I did down in Hedge End, which is fairly local to me at RJM Minis. And the second part is going to be out this Friday. So watch out for that because there's going to be something a bit different on there. There's not much footage on it because I was very, very busy and it took me a long time. But at least people can see something completely different.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the deep dive. It was fun to see, more thorough explanation of certain aspects of it.
Excellent. Okay, so one of the other things I think I'm going to do as well is I need to look at doing a video on how the SU works. All right, because I think we've got a lot of people that, despite everything that's out there, people don't really know how these things work. And I've looked at a few videos on the on YouTube, and they're not all that. So I'll try and do something that maybe even a 2-parter. We'll see on how the SU works, just so people can start to understand, from my point of view, what they should be looking at.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really is a vacuum computer. So the amount of things that you can change.
Description. A vacuum computer. I like it.
Yeah. The amount of things that can be changed and modified is significant.
Yeah.
And there's just lack of knowledge. So yeah, get a deep dive on an SU, how it works, basic principles, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd watch it.
In which case, I'll do it. At least I get one person, which is the main thing. Excellent, guys. So all those that are watching, we've got 16 in there now. If you can give us a thumbs up, that would be excellent. And if we've got any people that aren't subscribed, then if you could subscribe to the channel, that's even more excellent. So thank you very much. So have we got any technical questions yet? or do you want us to keep talking?
Yeah, we could do a lot of that.
Yeah, we can do a lot of that. So,
yeah, I've got another project car that's going to be coming in a few weeks. I've got a kind of a backlog right now of cars to get sorted out, but I'll put up a video of my barn find here in a little bit. It should be pretty fun. It's got a lot of things to fix.
yeah, absolutely. We've got our first question. Stephen Sam. Hi, guys. Should I still be using Stabil storage fuel stabilizer if I'm using E5 super unleaded as taking off the road till next spring? Yes. Yeah. So E5 still has nearly 5% ethanol in it. You need stabilizer.
Yeah. Yeah, and Stabil makes two products, one for everyday use and one for up to 2 years of storage. So if you're going to take it off till spring, that's got to be at least 6 months. So use the storage.
Steve Crook gives us a thumbs up. Colin Duff, evening all.
Hi, Colin.
John Leake, I wonder what the special vehicle is in the next episode. Well, he's smiling because it's his. Well, I ain't going to say anything. We'll wait until the video comes out, and then you can all go, "What was that?" Okay. Jeremy Coakley, hi guys, watching from Australia this morning. Excellent. Well done for joining, and I'm really impressed at how far and wide people join in. So thank you, Jeremy, for that.
Yep. Thanks for joining.
Okay. So a tyre question. I'm no good at tyre questions. Tony Harmer. So today I have a new set of boots fitted. Thought about getting some 165 by 12s and getting rid of my 22-year-old tires. My God. 145 12s, but the extra width would mean fitting rear spacers. 145s feel better. Yeah, well, yeah. You can't have everything. You know, in my little world, everything will be on 10s with 165 70s on. But that's what I grew up with, and I think the race.
Yeah, I don't mind the 145 feeling. It's fun around town. Very squishy.
Oh, question for you there, Darren from Simon Hughes. Says, hi, Darren. Have you heard of a YouTuber called Robbie Layton? He's over in the USA and has got a mini clubman that needs a tune.
I have not heard of him.
The USA is a big place, Simon. So,
yeah, I haven't heard of him, but send him my way or send him a link or something so I can find him. There's a lot of minis that need a tune around here. Wouldn't mind finding an estate wagon. It's probably more suited than my van for use, daily use.
So, what else is in the pipeline? So, I've got some news because I've managed to negotiate with SU carburetors, and they're going to build and sell an ACDodd fast road HI44, so that everybody will be able to buy one. So I'm particularly impressed that I've managed to do that. And not only that, but Mini Spares has agreed to sell it as well. So all I now need to do is deliver on my promise and actually get it done. So I will keep everybody informed, and hopefully by the next one of these chats, I'll actually have one here. But we'll see. We'll wait and see if that actually happens. But what it basically means is, if you want a HIF 44, that's my spec. So the ones that I carry with me when I go tuning, or if you order one, they all come with fast drop dampers and ported vacuum and all the rest of it. SU are going to build that specification from brand new. So you'll be able to buy for the first time a carburetor off the shelf that's got all the right bits in it to make your Mini go. Okay. And it won't have plugged holes and stuff. It'll be from the factory, ready to go on your car with all the right bits to make it go. clearly, it will still need tuning, but you know, the point is, for the first time, you can buy one with all the right bits. Now, if I have anything to do with it, it'll also have inside the box the gaskets, filters, things like that as well. Fuel filters, that is, not necessarily air filters, because everybody has different air filter. I've also managed to talk to Mini Spares, and we haven't agreed it yet, but the principal agreements there is they're looking to put a kit together, like an installation kit as well. So you can select two part numbers and get all the bits off the shelf, brand new, to fit in your car. So the reason why I've done that is because the worldwide supply of HI 44s, etc., is quite tight. You know, there's not so many about. So when people want one or they want to rebuild, they you know, they haven't got one to send in, or if they have, it's too expensive to post it. So you know, the best option there is just supply a new one. So you know, in the next few months, these will become available. So just watch this space.
That'll be awesome. And the bits from spares would be like a kit or something, because I just had to order a bunch of manifolds and hardware as all separate part numbers, and it took me 20 minutes to compile it.
Yes,
And I still managed to forget stuff.
That's the idea. And the other cool thing about the SU is it's going to come with a part number on from SU, and it'll have my initials on it. How cool is that?
That's really exciting. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not going to. I'll need to shut up now before I keep promising the world. So let's see what we deliver, and then we'll go from there. Meanwhile, lots of questions have been coming in. So what have we got? Okay, so let's go back to where Simon Hughes said there's a lot of minis that need tuning. Yeah, he's absolutely right there.
All of them. Yeah.
Yeah, all of them. So Dion says, good evening, gents. I never realised what a difference a high power ignition system makes. Now able to run at Lambda 1 to 1.05 without any hesitation or flat spots. Bingo! There you go. That is exactly why you do it. So people say to me, you know, why do I need a high power system? It's not about horsepower. It's about how you can drive efficiently for a road car and light off a lean mix. And Dion has just nailed it. So that's excellent. Well done, Dion. AA Ron's just said, hell yeah. And I think you might be saying about the carb, maybe.
Yeah, I think
so. Stefan Mini Cooper. Hi, guys. Watching from my holiday at Kos, Greece. Nice.
Good way to spend your holiday.
Absolutely. Darren Robert Shaw, only a 44 and not a 38. I've got let's walk before we can run, yeah? So I'm starting. I have a plan for more carburetors, but they won't do that if they don't sell. Okay, so let's just start with the one that needs to be done, which is the HIF 44, and then we'll work with the others as we go. I do have a plan for the other carbs, so let's just watch and wait, I think, at the moment, and then see what comes up. But if you're following my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, that's probably where you'll see the first pictures of these of the first one, and the first carburetor may be able. I might even sign the box and sell it. And we'll see about that, but I'll need to think about that first. There is something special coming as well, in as much as you'll be able to buy these carbs off of Berlin or SU carbs or Mini Spares. But if you buy one from me, I will sell you a zero tolerance version. Won't say any more about that just yet. But that's a plan for the people who want everything. Okay, so I'll move on. So Jeff Birch got a 6-hour drive this week to our New Zealand Nationals. Engine is very fumy in the car. When you open the windows, any idea where that might be coming from? I want to survive the drive. Right. Yes. What are your crankcase breathers like? Are they open? Have you got filters on the end, or are they, or is it closed straight into the carb? Let's start with that one first.
Same with manifold gaskets and downpipes.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
Also, do you have a center exit exhaust, or a side exit exhaust? I've noticed a lot of issues with the center exits where the fumes kind of spiral back into the car. because they are dynamic issues.
That's a good point. And if it's smelling, when you say fumes, is it engine fumes or is it petrol fumes? Because if you've got a breather problem or leaking pipes, your breather problem on the tank causes the car to stink of fuel inside as well. So, you know, there's a couple of things you need to look at.
Yeah, that's why I run the overflow pipe down as far as possible off the carb to get the fumes under the car instead of behind the bulkhead.
Okay, so Irk1808 says, what about the HS4? I've got a plan, but we need to get going first, okay? You know, because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get a big company to produce stuff, okay? And you know, they don't like doing things unless there's money involved. So if they don't sell, it's not going to happen. So we'll start with the one that everybody needs, which is HI44, and then I will look at how we can do a HS4 version as well. Okay, Tony Armour, are these SU HI44 better than the older units, 2s and 4s, i.e. all-round usage? So what's good about them is they're brand new. Okay, so there's no wear, zero wear.
New springs,
New
plating.
springs, new everything. Freshly plated, brand spanking new, shiny loveliness. Everything about it is brand new. Yes, it's going to cost a lot more, okay, than having you know, a rebuilt version. But the point is, for the first time, a performance carb for a classic A series will be available off the shelf. So the new carburetors won't have the ball bearing suction chambers, but I have a plan for that. But at the moment, we just need to get something on the shelf that is available. Okay. So yes, they are going to be better because they are brand new and there is zero wear anywhere. Okay. But the important thing to understand is I'm doing this not because I don't want to do any rebuilt carbs anymore. This is so that other people can buy stuff off the shelf all around the world. So this is bigger than the UK, if you see what I mean. All right. So this is me talking to Darren and a few other people saying, you know, and trying to do business and shipping carbs backwards and forwards, and it makes it really expensive. And you might as well just buy a new one. So hence, let's make a new one. All right. So that's what it's all about. But it means that everybody can benefit from that. Okay, Colin Duff. Just wondering that if I wanted to run NOS, could I run the feed to the large vacuum connection on the side of the SU carb? I was under the impression if you do that, you actually run it after the carburetor. So you inject it between the carburetor and the manifold after the butterfly. That's the way I understand NOS works. So you don't want to inject it before the butterfly. So yeah, you put in a plate that goes between the carb and the manifold with your injectors in there, and you inject it in there. Okay. Avani, what's the normal RPM in idle with and without vacuum when doing the timing? Do you want to do that one, Darren?
Well, so if you have a carb that's set up to run ported vacuum, then the vacuum itself isn't going to necessarily come into play at idle because there shouldn't be any vacuum on the distributor. Normal, A50 998 is 900 950 RPM, so 1275 might be a little bit higher. Really, just whatever the engine is most comfortable idling at, but the lower the better for fuel consumption reasons.
I tend to, because a lot of people in the UK have big alternators now because the alternators that are supplied are 70 amp. So if you're running 850 RPM at idle and you put your headlights on, the engine nosedives. So really, when I'm tuning, I usually aim for about 925 on 1275s or 998s. But it's especially prominent on a 998 that the RPM drops because it's such a small engine. So about 925 really when you're aiming for an idle.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of hills up here, so a bit more idle is kind of nice to take off from some of these steep 6%, 8% grades. But it just kind of depends on where you are, and if you have to do emissions and things like that, you might be limited as well in terms of idle speed.
Yeah.
And then with regard to timing, I always set my timing at 4,000 RPMs to make sure that I'm getting as much as I can out of the ignition system, and I'm checking 2,000 to make sure I'm not getting too much timing there. So I'd never really set my timing at idle, just because you don't know how worn out the distributor is, or you don't know what the curve is like.
Yeah. Clearly, you do need to pay attention to the timing at idle for emissions purposes. So you need to have the right advance curve. And I think what Darren's saying is, if he concentrates on the points where the engine critically needs the timing for power, which is absolutely right, 2,000 and 4,000 or whatever it is for the engine you're dealing with. But the point is, if you trust me, if you're trying to make a car pass emissions testing, the timing has to be right at idle as well, all the way over.
Yeah, idle and up to 2,000, and depending on the test, depending on the year.
I think Isto says, "Hi AC, why do you have an old knife on your carb needle tuning table?" I don't know if you've seen it, but I have an old 1950s butter knife on my tuning table. That all that's for is for cutting my abrasive paper. Yeah, so my wet and dry paper I use to polish in needles. That knife is just for that. Nice and simple. Okay, Matt Neal. I recently bought a 1986 Mini City E9 but had an engine changed in 1991. 1300 auto would changing from HI 38 to 44 benefit it anyway. Yes, in power, but actually that may also shorten the life of the gearbox. Okay, so autos you've got to be careful of if you start thrashing them around. So my suggestion with an auto is if you want it to last, keep the power down. So leave the 38 on it. There's no harm in getting the 38 tuned properly because that'll make the best of what's there. But if you just want power, then a 44 is absolutely the way to go.
Yeah, the 38 on a 1275 would have just faster velocity across the jet. But yeah, it could potentially be a restriction. But like AC said, you may just explode the gearbox.
Right, Stefan Mini Cooper. What about 123 ignition? They advise on a 3 ohm coil, so nothing high power in my case. You're not looking at the right one. They do, if you look closely, they do a 1 ohm high power arrangement. So look at that. I think if you look at like the 123 Tune Plus or whatever that has Bluetooth, it will fire a 1 ohm coil, which they sell. So with the 123, use all the stuff they sell. Don't mix it with anything else, because that way everything works properly and is guaranteed to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, Darren Robert Shaw, is a 44 too big for my standard 1275? Definitely not. They was fitted to standard 1275s. Austin Metros all had a 1275 engine. That were fitted with a 1275 engine. All had a HI 44 carb. Stefan also says he has a problem where fumes get in. Yeah. The one to look at there, Stefan, is just check your breathers. Is the first place to start. If you've got open breathers with crank vents, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, same thing about the center exhaust versus the side exit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got 44 people in. Can we have a like? Give us a like, please. Thank you very much. We've only got 15. There's 44 people. All hit that like button, please.
The Flying Ferret asks about resistor versus non-resistor plugs in the United States. I have to order all of mine on online sources. I've yet to find any local suppliers who have non-resistor plugs, and it's because the resistor plugs are sold for all modern cars. So I'm not surprised that there's nothing local to me, but there are people who sell the non-resistor plugs in the United States. You just have to do an online search. I have a whole box of them.
Yeah. Callum Mitchie, hi guys, hope all is well. I'm watching from the Kingdom of Fife, Scotland.
Oh yeah.
Ockeye the New. Thank you. and I welcome everybody from all over the place. So I appreciate you watching. Keep up the amazing work and content, he says. Yeah, thank you. No problem. Oh, the likes have gone up, so that's excellent. Please continue pushing the like button. That's greatly appreciated. Oh, right. What we got? Back to the noughties. Hi, Darren and AC. What dictates the best compression ratio for a given application? More isn't necessarily better, isn't it? Is it? He has a point. I appreciate that higher CR makes detonation more likely, so must be optimized. Absolutely right. What dictates the best compression ratio? Well, there's a number of factors, but basically it's all about how well your engine breathes and the octane rating of the fuel you've got. The good news is the fuel that we have nowadays is much less it's much less likely to detonate and rattle, etc. I've started experimenting with pushing the compression ratios up a little bit, but I'm not going to say anything about that yet until the results are in, which will take a while because it's going to take more than one engine to get that in. But the point is, most people build engines with too much compression. Okay, this is what happens. So all my engines and all my specifications, they're all lower compression, so that the engines are happy and they're not fussy. Okay, so what generally dictates the compression ratio for an engine, if I'm specifying it, is the camshaft, okay, and the rockers, etc. So if you understand the breathing potential of the engine, what cylinder heads fitted, what carburetion's fitted, the camshaft, etc., then that's basically how you determine the compression ratio. So it all starts with the camshaft. There is, so just to add a little bit there, too much compression basically means that you can't run the optimum timing angle. So you have to retard the ignition, which then stunts the performance of the engine. So if you're always better off to run less compression and more timing than too much compression and having to knock the timing back. The engine will always perform better.
And also elevation to an extent.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And as Darren is absolutely right, because he lives at an altitude of, well, he's a mile high, literally. The altitude, you can run a higher compression at higher altitude because you've got less cylinder fill. So you can squeeze that charge harder. He's absolutely right. So just because I'm saying to him, you want a 9.75 to 1 compression, that might be for sea level. Whereas actually he could probably run maybe 10.25 or maybe even higher.
Yeah, the only trouble is if you go back down to sea level with that engine, you have to turn back the timing a bit. Otherwise, you'll have detonation issues.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is if you optimize it for the altitude, it needs to stay at the altitude. Okay.
Yeah. On my trip to South Dakota, the red car behind me, I actually took a degree of timing out of it when I got there because I just noticed that it just wasn't performing the way it had been up here. And when I took a look at the plugs, I noticed that it was showing a bit of over timing evidence.
Yeah.
So I knocked a degree off and it was fine.
I just want to bring that attention to everybody. Darren has the ability to feel it when he's driving, and he adjusted it by 1 degree, okay, because he knew the engine wasn't right. And this is the level that you get to if you do a lot of tuning and you understand and you drive cars and you feel how things work and you read spark plugs. Darren was able to pick that up and then adjust his timing to suit because of the altitude change. There's not many people that can detect things like that, and it is a skill. So just bear that in mind that Darren would actually go out and adjust for 1 degree of timing.
Yeah, and that motor is a low compression engine, so it wouldn't have detonated no matter where you put the engine. It just doesn't have enough compression to do that. So it was entirely about how it was driving on the highway and the way it was performing. And I took a degree off and it was fine again. Actually, it was better than fine because it got more power because I went down in altitude, so I had more air.
Yeah. Someone's saying next question there. Where's the vent on a HIF 44. Yeah. Here's a particularly rough example I have in front of me, and it's not for a Mini. This is an electronic one, but it's the breather is that pipe there, and that's where you put your engine crankcase breathers into that pipe there on HIF 44. Not the one behind it, the big one there.
And I recently put out a video last week on breathers, talking about breathers and how they cycle air through the engine and where they should go as well.
Yeah. So if you watch that video, Darren, it gives you an idea of where these things are all plumbed up.
It's important to make sure it's airtight, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Good hoses and connections.
Callum Mitch is just backing me up and saying you're correct. Regards the nitrous oxides, I've seen a standard OE depth phenolic spacer drilled and adapted to take screw fittings for the NOS injection. Yeah, thanks for that, Callum. Jeremy Oakley, I've recently bought a couple of your camshafts, an RS and an RSFI for a couple of upcoming builds. What valve springs do you recommend to use with these with 1.3 rockers? For road applications, it's simple. It's the AEA 525 springs for mini spares. I'll tell you what you want to do on the boosted application. Just shim them to 80 pounds closed. Okay, so with a seated load, 80 pounds. And for the other one, 75. 73 is even good enough for the non-boosted one. All right. Gomer Pile, do you guys recommend dielectric grease on your bullet connectors?
I do.
Yeah.
Make sure they're clean, shiny.
Yeah,
first.
clean, shiny, and they stay shiny. Yeah. Steve Crook, revs were slowing when depressing the clutch on my 848. That's never good. Yeah, found one thrust washer being inserted the wrong face round. Yeah, thrust was well worn, but crank not too bad. Oversized thrust or a new crank. What I would suggest you do with that is if it's had some damage on the crank thrust face, it needs machining, and then you can get oversized thrust washers for that. I think you can get plus 30s, so they are available. So yeah, oversized thrust washers and machine the crank. The crank does not have to go for grinding. Okay, so I've repaired a number of crankshafts in the lathe by facing the thrust face, so it doesn't have to be ground. All right.
Was this from last week or our last live stream, Steve? Did you mention this last time? I feel like I remember someone talking about an engine that was slowing down on the clutch being depressed. It could have been an inline motor now that I think about it.
Brian Davis, what is the process for achieving the correct AFR when working with dual and triple carbs? That's why I offer training, Brian. Unfortunately, you need to pay for that information. There's a limit to the information that I'll give out because I obviously offer training courses for people. And if I give all that information out, people like Darren and a few others will get a bit grumpy because they've had to pay for the information. So, effectively, you've just got to, the real trick here is measure what's happening. And then you just make the needle to suit. Yeah. And it's not just the needle. There's the spring, and then there's the oil, and there's the damper. All right. It all has to play a part. And again, that's why I offer training.
And how good are those shaft seals and things like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, having a good Lambda gauge in the car goes a long way.
Absolutely. In fact, I can't stress enough, if you haven't got a Lambda gauge in your classic car, you're not serious about having the car running properly. That's really what it comes down to. In my world, everybody will have one because it just makes such a difference for you to be able to monitor stuff and know when there's a problem. Back to the noughties. I was told not to exceed 9.75 to 1. I thought this sounded a bit low. Well, quick question for you. Oh yeah, next you've actually said there 285 overlap. Maybe a touch low, but I wouldn't want to be going like 285 cam. What's the rest of the specification? Because my brain's thinking 10.25 to 10.5 to 1. Yeah, for a 285 cam, but we need to know the rest of the spec. Clint Fall, what's your thoughts on Avonbar fast road camshafts? Never ask somebody else that sells cams about somebody else's cams. Sorry, Clint, not going to answer that one.
Yeah, Steve's saying first time asking about his clutch issue. Okay, so it was someone else who had a thrust washer problem as well on our last live stream.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for letting us know that, Steve. It is common when people put these things together wrong, but as I say, if you've called it in time and it hasn't done too much damage, possibly you can machine the crank and then just put new oversized thrust washers in, and you'll be good to go.
It's nice to hear someone keeping an 850 going.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few of them now. I do get to tune quite a few of them. A lot of people like the standard car, and obviously when they like them, the comment I get from people when I'm tuning the 850s is, "Oh, it goes like my 9 and 8." So a good tune-up does make them go a lot better. Stefan Mini Cooper, what kind of grit do you use when polishing needles? I use 1,000. Okay, so depending on what I'm taking, if I want to take a lot off, it's more like 120. If I want to take less off, it's more like 320, and if I want to take not so much off, it's 600, and if I want to take very little off, it's 1,000. So it just depends on what you need to do and wherever you're, whatever you're doing on the needle.
Yeah, and where?
Yeah. Bernard War, in the last chat, someone did chime in about the I think the revs dropping when the clutch was operated. Yeah, okay. And that is classic thrust washer issues. Okay, so we got 47 in the chat. That's excellent. And we have 27 likes. Come on. Let's get 47 likes. Let's get clicking. If you can give us a thumbs up, that's excellent.
David's back. Hi, David.
Yeah, David's where do I hide my Lambda Gauge if I want the appearance of a stock with a vintage motor?
Semi-transparent mesh, David.
So what I say to people is, well, you don't have to have it fitted permanently. You can just arrange for it to be in the car when you need to do tune-ups and all the rest of it. Okay, it's better if it is permanent, but put it somewhere where it can fold up out of the way, maybe under the under the dash. But
yeah,
the point is,
the Innovate gauge uses a molded connector that clips right to the back of the gauge, so you could easily just disconnect the gauge and fold up the wiring when you don't need it.
Yeah. Okay. Matt Neal, hi AC. Do you do any tuning days in Scotland? Not had a car long and not a member of any club. I'm in Glasgow. Right, there's 3 people in Scotland that have been trained by me that can tune your car. So I don't know. So Glasgow, you're Robert Stewart at DRS Motorsport. You've got Jim Wilson at AJ Wilson and Sons, I think it is. And then up in Aberdeen, Jim Wilson's in Leven. And then up in Aberdeen, you've got, I can't remember the name. You've got Daniel Johnson. He's up there with, he's got a big company on the Rolling Road. He can do you. I'll think of the name later. It'll come to me. At the moment, my recall is not so good. So you're well catered for up there in Scotland. You don't need me up there, but I do tuning days in Scotland. But there's little point now that you've got so much coverage up there. Okay, so what we've got here. back to the noughties. Engine is a 1340 Piper 285 stage 3 head 1.3 rockers twin H's. Okay, I'd just go for 10.25 with that. That feels about right. Timbo 1975. Is the Ford EcoBoost still poorly? Yes. And the compression has been confirmed as on cylinder number 2, so it's very poorly. So the jury's out as to what caused it, but I'm just going through the process of I just want a new engine. So watch this space. Amidslad, do you guys offer a Dizzy recurve service? Absolutely.
Yep.
If so, how do I go about getting this done? Where are you in the world? Because Darren does worldwide service, and I tend to give Darren anything that I don't want to post difficult. That's more difficult than than easy. So Darren tends to do my international stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the last one I shipped was down in Brazil.
There you go.
Shipping's not cheap.
Yeah. Well, it depends where it's going.
Yeah.
Troy Powell says my Lambda's in the center console, but use the vent hole in the console. Yeah, well done. Thanks, Troy, for that. It's good to see you on here.
Yep, I tried.
Simon Hughes, what's the Lambda kit you recommend? The Innovate stuff is really good. Is the one that I push. The other one that I do see a lot is the AEM wideband kit. That seems to be quite popular.
Can the AEM be switched to Lambda?
Yes.
I haven't tested it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, there was one of those in the special vehicle that's coming up next weekend, and it was to 3 decimal places, and I was quite impressed. But it was working really well. Okay, so Demi-Quad FPV. Do you have a list of guys' locations you have trained somewhere? Yes, in my head. So one of them is on this call, and it's Darren. Okay, so I should do it this way because it comes out the other way. So Darren. So Darren has been trained, and he's the only person in the USA that's had the Dodd training. So if you're in the USA, please go to Darren because he will definitely be able to sort your car out, and he also he can compensate for altitude as well. So he's he knows his SUs. As I say, there's 3 in Scotland that I mentioned earlier, and there's also another chap near me down in Taunton in the southwest of England called Billy Glendinning, and he's in a sort of a country garage, but he's still going through the process of setting himself up because he doesn't necessarily get lots of classic cars, but he wants to get into that. So in due course, he will be available down there to tune some cars. Silly question from Is2. But when selecting what oil to go in the carb, is it best to do it when the engine is fully up to temperature? As I presume the oil will thin out as the engine bay warms up, or am I overthinking? Over to you, Darren.
It does thin out, but it's not like the motor oil itself. Like, you have to remember the carb, as the air is passing through the carb, it is expanding a bit, so it is producing a cooler effect. But when we do our tuning, it's always when everything's warmed up. And using a grade oil, it tends to maintain that consistency depending when it's hot or cold. But you want the oil to thin out because as it gets hot, it tends to end up running richer because the air passing through the carburetor, gets hotter as it hits the manifold and hits the valves, and it produces a better combustion gas essentially. So you need to lean out when it does warm up, and that's why you have the oil. So but it does warm up in the engine bay.
So to answer the question, any tuning is always done when the engine's up to full temperature.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Amistad, I'm in the Midlands. Okay, so it's a distributor. So it's probably me that is the best place to get a Dizzy for yourself. Currently not doing Dizzies at the moment. because I'm still tuning. But once I stop tuning and I've got less work on, I've got so much work here at the moment, you know, right in front of me, pistons and all sorts of things that I'm doing. I've just got basically a huge backlog, which is why I've stopped taking on work. I've also stopped taking on more private work until January. So because I've just got so much here that people are going to get annoyed if I don't get it done. So I can't take on any more at the moment. So just bear with me. Okay. Stefan Minico, buy a Binny Club and enough room for your tuning stock and good engines. Yeah, but you have to say that EcoBoost is a cool engine, right? I've driven it for 50,000 miles. I think my problem with my EcoBoost is something had gone wrong with it before I'd got it. It's always had an issue, and whatever it was has now come to light and finished it off. So I just need to concentrate on trying to get that back on the road in the best way I can. And, you know, I'm sure you'll see me again in it at some point in the future, but we just got to get an engine and sort it out yet. And they're not cheap. I've had the Ford want £7,100 for one. So, you know, they're not cheap engines, the 4 cylinders. And the reason why they're not cheap is because they don't change them. So all this bullshit about people telling everybody, oh, they're shit engines and all the rest of it. I'm telling you, the 4-cylinder doesn't have a problem in the UK, because I was quoted today 3 to 4 months to get one. Okay, so just people need to understand that some of the stuff they read online is not true. Okay, I will admit there is a problem with the 3-cylinder one because everybody knows about it, right? The 4-cylinder one has got much less of an issue. So it looks like I've just been unlucky. Chopper Patrick, would you recommend the Vizard SU modifications for a track car? What sort of track car? Because if you're a track car, I'll just put a Weber on it. That's that's my point. Is why would you what's your reasoning for using an SU on a track? I'll fire that back to you. Clint Ford, I'm building a Fast Road 1275. The engine is on a manual box, but the engine number says it's an auto. What should I look to confirm it's originally a manual and someone has just put a plate on? Okay, so an auto doesn't have a dipstick hole. Okay, so the dipstick on an auto goes in through the transfer case. So if there's no hole for a dipstick, it's an auto block. Okay, they are possible to convert, but it's a lot of money and time, and I don't know if anybody would have bothered to do that. So there are a few other things, but that's the one that comes to mind straight away. You can have a look. If it's got a dipstick hole, it's probably not an auto. Okay. 1808. Can I send you my other Power Spark 65D now then, AC? No. Because my bench, there's no room for one. All right. So do not send me anything at the moment. I'm trying to clear my benches and then I can put more stuff on there. But at the moment, I'm absolutely loaded. Bowen Ross, which air filter setup is best for my single HS4 SU carb on a road car? What size is your engine? And what spec is the engine? Colin Duff, what engine oil would you suggest? Yeah, someone else has written 2050. I like 2050.
Yeah.
So 20W50 oil, it is thick, but it fills up all the big clearances you get in an A series. But the most important, as Darren's just said, the zinking for the camshaft is definitely what you need. And obviously, if it's a new engine, don't use a normal oil. You need to use a braking oil, all right, for the initial braking. Advantages of swapping HS4 to an HIF 38. Darren?
Well, that's what I'm going to do to the red car over here, because I've noticed that given our weather, we could start out a day where it's just about freezing, and then by midday, it's in the mid 70s, low 80s. So there are rather large temperature swings in the area that I live in. And the fueling can go from, say, Lambda 1 or 14.7 to 1 at idle in the morning. And by midday afternoon, it's down in the 0.85 range at idle. So I can have a 15% change in fueling just from the day. And with the HS4 fixed jet, that's what you're going to get with the heat. Now, if you go to the HIF 38, you've got temperature compensation. Even if you had a wax set, you'd get temperature compensation. So one reason to go to the HIF, you get temperature compensation, you get the integrated fuel float bow chamber, and you get a larger fuel chamber, and you get the throttle shaft seals on the throttle shafts.
And no fuel surge when you go around the corner, which is very common. Yeah. You get throttle shaft seal. I mean, where do you want to stop? You get a ball bearing suction chamber.
Yep.
The whole thing is just better.
So swinging needle.
Yeah, it will basically hold a better air fuel ratio curve as well. It's just a more accurate carburetor. Okay, Chopper Patrick, rules don't allow. So this is talking about Vizard modifications to the HS4. Are you allowed to modify the carb? Because some of the rules don't allow you to modify the carburetor. If you are allowed to modify the carburetor, then I would suggest the knife edging the butterfly, removing half the throttle spindle, all works. Okay. What doesn't work so well is if you start carving up the bridge. All right. So one of the best modifications is to get the piston to go all the way up, so it's out of the way. And if you can put a chamfer on the leading edge and the trailing edge of the butterfly of the piston, sorry. But what you must remember is you go too mad, then your piston movement starts to get affected too much. So keep it small, and you will need to recalibrate the carb after you do it. Jeff Birch, apologies, as I know this has been asked before. How effective is it if an AFR gauge with the sensor up the tailpipe? And what sort of fitting is required for this? Okay, I'll make this simple. If you put it up the tailpipe, it needs to be completely sealed and full flow. If it isn't, it's not going to work, and it will give you the wrong reading.
Yeah, just easier to fit it straight to the manifold.
Yeah, Clint Ford's just come back and said, got a dipstick and oil filter in the manual position. Then it might be that the engine number's just been changed. So the engine number isn't correct, and the block is actually a manual block. Okay, so Stefan Mini Cooper, I tried the Vizard mod on my previous HI44 to modify the damper, but caused a huge power loss and a lean spot at low RPM. Well, yeah, as I said, you've got to be able to calibrate that. And usually if you start playing with the inside of the SU, you have to remember that this is for racing or track work, okay? So when you're wide open, drivability doesn't matter, right, on a track, as long as it goes hard all the way across the power band, okay? And it will do with the right modifications. So I do not advise you start shaving bits off the inside of your SU for a road car, because it can have detrimental effects. If you need more airflow for a road car, fit a bigger carb or another one. So you've got twins.
Yeah, I was going to say, twins might be a better choice.
So racing modifications only, not for road, all right? Okay, I think Berwin Rust has got back to us. What was his question earlier about the size? Just have a quick look at these questions. I can't remember what he asked.
Air filter.
Ah, okay. Well done. That's very good, Darren. Who can remember that? 9 and 8 rebuild to 1040cc, so plus 60. I've got the car up. Yeah. Okay, so effectively a decent K&N filter, although you could have the plastic box and have it drilled, right? That will work very well as well. Chopper Patrick says thanks. Okay, excellent. I've got almost 50 people. We're an hour in, nearly an hour in. 50 people, 38 likes. That's much better on the likes, by the way. Thank you very much. Keep hitting that like button if you want to see more. I don't want to sound like a stuck record, but it helps. So, no more questions for the minute. What else have you got planned, Darren?
Well, I've got more, obviously my Classic Mini Survival Guide episodes to come out. But I'd like to get the new project featured. I've got some other tuning repair work, on these other cars that all come out. So the Survival Guide episodes may take a slight break while I get some of those other ones published. And then I'll get into project land once I've got my backlog of cars kind of out of the garage and the project car back into the garage. So that's kind of the plan. Don't really have any other shop changes or modifications just because I'm, maxed out right now. But yeah, as we go into winter, it's going to be a lot of bench projects and rebuild time. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I got at least one partial engine rebuild, possibly another coming up. We'll see. So yeah, a lot of bench work.
Okay, nice. That's really good. Go back to some questions. I would love to use the ITG filter, the MED cell, better airflow than the old K&N. I can't argue with what you're saying. They're very good air filters, and they sell a very good system. So, yeah, it's a good setup. Demi Quad FPV. How many thou from flat will a head gasket take up? Obviously, ideally, it's skimmed and flat. Well, yeah, obviously, ideally, I don't know the answer. I would say probably, a thou and a half, 2 thou's probably pushing it a bit. But what you got to remember is it's the amount of pressure that's applied to the head, and 2000s can make quite a bit of difference on the actual pressure that's on the gasket, especially if you've got it clamped at one area and you've got 2 thou low in one point and it's not pushing, especially if that's across the middle where on the fire ring where there's holding maximum pressure. So I would say really a thou and a half. I wouldn't go much more than that if you want it to be reliable. So
yeah, I wanted to go back to the air filter comment here.
Yep.
So whatever filter you fit, just observe the effect it has on the car. So if you have, an air fuel gauge, you can see what the effect of the filter has on it. I have a video on the Mayfair I tuned where my fueling was perfect until I fit the air filter on, and it just tanked because it was such a restriction. So yeah, whatever you fit, observe the reaction it has to the motor and adjust it accordingly.
Yeah.
That's why we have to drill the air boxes many times.
Yeah, drilling the air boxes makes a huge difference. And what Darren was saying, you notice he said that there again about measurement and having a gauge fitted. This is the only way you can do stuff. Darren Robert Shaw. Okay, so what we got here? Yeah, Darren Robert Shaw. The instructions for our mini spare stage 1 kit recommend drilling the air filter box, as I've seen you do many times. How many holes, where, and what diameter? If you have a look at my last video, you'll see me drilling holes in air boxes, okay? And you'll see where I drill them. Typically 3/4 of an inch, okay? 19 millimeters.
Yeah, it's funny they recommend it for the stage 1 kit. I would recommend it for any car.
Yeah, yeah, even a standard one. In fact, if you take this is a tuning modification. I love this one. If you take a standard engine in a 998, drill the airbox, and I'm talking about standard exhaust, standard inlet, standard everything. Drill the airbox, reneedle the carburetor, and recurve the distributor. She'll go every bit as well as a stage 1.
Yeah, that's where that car is at right now.
Yeah. Okay, so Clint Ford, can I port a stock 12G? I think you mean 940 there, Clint. Head to compete with a large valve MG Metro head. Yes, no problem. In fact, I used to do a lot of big valve conversions on the small heads, for ML Motorsport many years ago, putting them on, had them on the shelf so they would use them as their stock heads when they do rebuilds. So we would take the typically the unleaded head that was produced by the factory with a 33.3 mil or 33.2 mil inlet, and then I'd take the valve out and then open the seat up and the throat with a multi-angle cut to take it up to 35.7. Troy's got one there for you, Darren.
Hey, Troy, let's see. Installing a Lambda Gauge and setting it up. Yeah, so I do have a video that I'm going to put out that is going to be talking about intake and exhaust manifolds themselves. And I will bring up the topic of installing the Lambda Gauge into it, because I want to get my manifold ceramic coated before I use it. So I do have a video that's not necessarily specific to the Lambda Gauge, but it's going to include installing a Lambda Gauge into the manifold, and where would you put it and why, and the angles and stuff like that. So it is on my list, Troy, but I do appreciate you recommending it.
Stefan Mini Coopers, a few days ago, Carver ST showed the drill and plug off the oil bypass ball in the oil filter housing. What do you think about this? Yes, it's a very good modification. I've done it to many. I did it to all my engines when I was building them, except I didn't do it the way he did. I just used to braze up the ball and the socket, so it couldn't do it. It couldn't pass any oil. And I was used to giggle and show people that I could braze it up with an oxyacetylene torch and not melt the aluminium. One of those little gags that you learn.
Yeah, so I saw that post as well, and I'm kind of glad he put that up, because I had recently purchased one of those oil filter housings, and there was tons of aluminum flash all over the place. So I spent a good 20 minutes with small files just knocking down the edges and taking out the material that was going to go into the engine, because it was on the post filter side where all the flashing was. And then he pointed out the restriction in flow, because the drilling was smaller than a factory drilling on that filter housing.
Yeah. Okay, so Chopper Patrick, what do you recommend for running in a cam? Okay, so when you put it in the engine build lube, personally I like to use moly grease on the lobes, because it can sit there for months on end and it doesn't run off. I also make sure that my cam followers are correctly profiled by using Keith at Carver ST. He profiles the followers, therefore they've got the right radius on the end, because pretty much most of the stock ones you buy haven't. So get Keith to profile your followers, and then obviously use the moly, as I said, the moly grease on the lobes. You can use any of the proprietary cam break-in lubes, but a lot of them, if they're stored for a long period of time, will run off. Okay, so it's okay if you're going to pour it on and then start the thing up straight away, but if you're going to store it, I tend to use grease. And then when it's running, make sure you've got running in oil in the sump, and then you run the cam at 2000 revs for 20 minutes. And then while you're doing that, it's very important that you're monitoring the fueling to make sure you're not washing the rings out while you're running the engine at 2000 revs. So again, wideband gauge, and then adjust the fueling so that it's running lean while it's doing that.
Yeah, and Ross recently had Ross Thomas had a video of him starting up a supercharged build that he had just finished putting together. He had to stop the braking process because it was running 0.7 on the Lambda Gauge. So he knew immediately to stop running it any further because it was going to damage the fresh engine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, why does he start every engine up with a wideband gauge? Because he knows what they need to run and what they need to what you need to do to them have a successful build. If you'd have carried on doing that, he'd have wiped the rings out of that, and that engine wouldn't produce its full potential.
Yeah.
Siemens Sam, non-tuning question. What is your favourite model Mini, chaps, and what spec would you have? Money, no object. I wouldn't have a tuned one. I'd have a very basic one, probably a mini club and estate or a minivan, something like that. But it would have a few, like electrical things in it. Modern phone charging, that sort of thing. Being able to charge my EcoFlow unit in the car, all that sort of stuff. and it will probably have a 1275 based engine with high ratio final drive, a nice torque pump, low revving engine, but nothing racy, because it wouldn't, racy engines don't last 5 minutes. So I like them to be nice drivers. A road engine has to have a smooth idle, because it's not really a road engine if it's not smooth idle. That's my view. But
yeah, I'm on board with that build as well. I might need slightly less high gearing just because of all the mountains I have to deal with. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a 5-speed. That would be really nice up here. But yeah, a van, 1275. That'd be really nice. Maybe some air conditioning.
So we've reached 60, the great height of 60 people. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you're not finding this too boring. So that's excellent. What else we got? Okay, Clint Ford, do you think offset wheel rough keys are okay to use on the duplex timing set? No problem. But my question to you is, Clint, why are you using a duplex timing set? You're adding unnecessary weight to that engine. So if I was you, I'd stick with a simplex and use an Ibis chain. Takes off the rotational inertia. All right, you don't need a duplex. Just use a decent simplex chain.
Yeah, and I use the Woodruff keys that are offset. I don't have issues with them.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to adjust them with a file so they fit properly, but that's par for the course with stuff nowadays.
Yeah. But that one's got a 2-degree offset in it with the Ibis chain.
Yep. Matt Neal says, Darren, what's your channel called? Over to you.
Yeah, it's a Darren's Restorations. Someone will have to put the link in the chat because I can't do it while I'm using my phone.
Yeah, so if somebody else could do that, that would be great. Thank you. James Barron Scott, is there any real difference between the various types of bronze, fossil bronze, and other exotic types of valve guides available? I vaguely remember one of them not liking certain valve materials. Yeah, so I think the question is if you want a long-lasting guide for road use, then iron guides are pretty good, but you've got to have a chrome stem valve or a plasma nitrided stem. Coil Cibro works very well, very hard, yeah. So again, works best with a valve that's plasma nitrided. Aluminium bronze, yeah, they kind of wear a bit quick in my experience. But try Coil Cibro is pretty good. And I also had some guides which I got from Slark Racing, which he had made. And I'm not sure the material spec, but they're pretty good as well. So the ones that Slark Racing sell were pretty good. I've used Mini Spares one with success as well, but I've also had valve guides nip up as well with certain materials. So I know that Coil Cibro is a material that works very well. Thomas Classic and Modern. Evening, chaps. What have I missed?
Hey, Ross.
Hi, Ross. You've missed most things, but now you're here. A quick question for you, Ross. For the future, would you like to be part of this live stream? Would you want to come on here and answer questions for people? I'll let you let us know on that one, but there's an invite for you for the future. Steve Crook, do you use Hylamar or similar on Klinger engine gasket sets, or put them in dry? Personally, I've always used a thin, emphasize thin smear of RTV.
The same. I don't trust any of the gaskets to not leak. I don't care what
trust
they're
anything.
I don't even trust the silicone valve cover gaskets to not leak. I put silicone on top of those things. But yeah, if you see some other engines that are machined to high tolerances where they can be put together without gaskets, and then you look at the stuff the English built, you'll just laugh. Like cork seals for main caps, like what? How do you expect oil to not pass through that? It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I use sealant on everything. But again, thin. You don't want noodles traveling around the motor,
No,
clogging stuff
definitely
up.
not. Back to the noughties. Can you recommend anyone to give a flywheel a very light skim? I'm in Cambridgeshire. So you might be able to take it along specialist components. They might be able to do it for you. And the other one is the name escapes me. It's the one that Keith Carver uses. They got a machine shop over. I can't remember the name. Someone else will put it up. But I can't think of anybody else. Problem with doing flywheels is you get hard spots. So if you get an old school machinist who's got a lathe, he'll moan that he can't cut through it. Well, he's using the wrong insert if that's the case, because modern inserts will cut through it. But in terms of most flywheel places who do flywheels, they tend to grind them and things like that. But I just turn mine. But I used a decent insert that will cut through the hard spots. Tim Rice, if I start my Mini up with the choke and run it on driveway whilst it's warming up, is it normal to blacken the plugs? Yes, and stop doing that. Yeah. So the way to warm up a Mini is not to leave it on your driveway running with the choke out. Okay. The way to warm up a Mini or any engine is to start the car and drive it. Okay. So get the choke off as soon as you possibly can, because all you're doing is washing the lubrication off the rings, okay, and adding to engine wear. So don't do that. 1808. Ideal timing advance at 2 and 4,000 revs for a 998 A plus C level. Well, we can't give you the ideal advance because we can't dyno test your engine and tell you what that is. But if you give us some specifications of your engine, we might be able to give you some ballpark figures to aim for.
Yeah, and back to Tim's point about the choke. My car is highly tuned, runs very efficiently. If I let it sit for more than a minute on choke, it'll almost kill it. Like I can't just walk away and come back a few minutes later with it on choke. It'll choke it to death. So yeah, I pull the choke out as soon as I start hearing it stumbling because it's getting too much fuel. I'm backing off the choke, but it's a very short period of time. It's not minutes.
So people don't seem to realise if you start the car up and it's making this noise, go when it's running, it's too rich. Push the choke in. Yeah. Never leave the car when it's making that noise, because all it's doing is just sooting things up, washing the oil off, and all the rest of it. Start the thing up on full choke, push the choke in as soon as you possibly can, and then drive the car. Don't let it sit warming up. Stefan Mini Cooper, now 59. I have to go. Okay, right. If I have the time tomorrow, we'll catch up the rest from the video. Thanks for all the answers, and let's keep coming. The videos coming. All right. Thanks, Stefan.
Thanks, Devin.
Okay. There you go. Dion's put your channel up there at Darren's Restorations. Thanks there, Dion.
Thanks, Dion.
Back to the noughties, Anglian Engine Services. Yeah, I've heard of the name, but I neither. So yeah, any of those should be able to do it. The GTE channel. What's the worst performance upgrade people keep buying? It doesn't really work. 1.5 rockers not included. Well, the problem with 1.5 rockers is they do actually work, right? So there's no argument about that. It's just they don't work for as long as people want them to work for. That's the problem with those. Okay, so ERC 1808 comes back with standards. So this is the question about timing at 2,000 and 4,000. Well, my suggestion for you is if that's a standard engine, then at 2,000 you want about 20 degrees before top dead center. So this is without the vacuum fitted. And at 4,000 you want 30 degrees, and that's full advance. So you don't want any more advance after that. Okay. And then reconnect your vacuum.
The question about the performance upgrade, I think what bothers me is the adjustable oil pressure device. I always see it on cars where they've cranked it up to some ridiculous pressure. You know, it's never like they've set it at 30 or 40 pounds to compensate for something else. It's always like cranked up to 80 or 90.
Yeah, well, more's better, surely.
Yeah, of course. Now, I cut a loop out of this one just to drop it down to 50 because it was at 70 something on the highway. I was like, nah, that's a waste of energy.
So I built an
But
engine once for ML Motorsport that passed the 130 horsepower mark, and she had 50 pounds hot. That was it.
yeah, like that's all you need.
Yeah.
You know, I also get irritated by oil coolers that don't have the need. Like,
Yeah.
unless you have a temperature gauge to measure your oil temperature and can verify that it's getting too hot,
Yeah.
or have
So
some way of controlling the flow through the cooler based on
yeah. So
temperature.
what people do is they fit them without fitting the oil thermostat. That's what you need, oil
Yeah,
thermostat, and you only need a small cooler. You don't need a big one.
yeah, yeah. So I'd say that would be my biggest annoyance. Plus, they just get in the way of tuning.
Darren Robert Shaw, any view on using anything to deal other gaskets, inlet, outlet, and exhaust? I'm not sure what you're after there. What do you mean, like removing? Just clarify what you mean there, Darren. Thomas Classic and Modern, thanks very much for the flattering invite, chaps. I'm more than happy to throw my hat in the ring and join you for a future live session. Nice. I have to get some beer in the workshop. Yeah. That's the only thing, though. It'd be nice if you can do it from your workshop, but I appreciate that may not be possible for you. But it'd be nice with the background there. It would look very nice with perhaps one of your many shiny engines that you have in your workshop.
Yeah, I'm jealous how many you make. You know, perfect in a month. It's too many. But yeah, I was just commenting on your video about running that supercharged motor with the air fuel gauge hooked up, and you stopped the break in because it was running way too rich, and how important it is for people to understand that you need to monitor your fueling from basically first crank.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So Darren's just said, yes, sorry, seal. So view on using anything to seal other gaskets. Inlet, outlet. Okay. So inlet, outlet gasket, you mean on the manifold? Because you don't put anything on those gaskets. What you do to make sure those are right is your manifold flanges are flat and your head face is flat. And you also make sure that your inlet manifold flanges and your exhaust manifold flanges are the same thickness. This is the
Yeah,
key to making sure they sit properly and seal. Carb gaskets, I've never put anything on a carb gasket. You just clean the manifold off, put the gasket on, and she seals right up. As long as the flanges are flat. And that's one thing is when I rebuild my carbs, I always reface the flanges, and you'll be surprised how many carburetors the flanges are definitely not flat.
yeah. They get over torqued and they get warped and just a mess. But even using genuine SU gaskets, they're thicker than those black paper ones. So having a better quality gasket can usually fix a problem.
Yeah. Clint Fall just retracted his message, but he was just basically saying, yeah, use new gaskets every time. Okay, so Thomas Classic, I'm sure I can get set up in the engine shop to join in. That'll be excellent there, Ross. If you can do that, be much appreciated. We'll talk offline about that and set you up for the future. I'm not sure how it will come out on the video, Darren, but I think we might look very thin.
Well, it'll probably cube us like this.
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe that's the case.
Yeah, or it might have to force us to be in landscape mode on the phone.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Okay, Minimat TV. Hi there. Which Verto clutch setup would you recommend for a turbo 998 build with 100 horsepower? AIM. Is an RTS overkill worth it for fit and forget? I think for that, you just want a properly optimized single plate would probably do that one. But you need to think about that because 150 foot-pounds is about your limit. So I think that might just be good enough for a 998 boosted engine. If you want to go overkill and never have it slip, then an RTS. But the point is, there's a lot more thrust load. So I would stick with a single plate for the 998. I think you'll be all right for that. But it needs to be the strongest single plate you can build. So it will need the uprated turbo cover, and it would need a 190mm, probably a competition plate in there. When I say competition, road competition, not like paddle, to get the maximum grip. Okay, Demi-Quad, what about copper versus composite like Victor Rinse for gaskets? Talking about, yeah, I mean, multi-layer steel gasket for head gaskets is the way forward, really. But, you know, engines don't normally have lots of gasket problems because I'm sure if they did, people like Ross at Thomas Classic and Modern would be throwing things at me saying, what's the best gasket? But he doesn't have loads of problems with gaskets, the standard gaskets. A lot of people have problems because they don't fit them properly or they're using crap head studs. Yeah, the head studs that come with the standard A series were terrible. EN8 steel, it's plain carbon steel. There's just no guts in that at all, especially when people have overtorqued them. The studs are gone. So fitting a decent set of studs makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, I think on that copper head gasket, they recommend running it in on just regular water before you put coolant in it or something. Like there is some minor.
So Keith Carver came up with the idea of running them dry, and I used to run them dry as well for a couple of minutes just to stick the head down, and that seemed to work. So yeah, I recommend that, but you've got to be, you know, you can't keep running the engine. You've got to run it and then stop because it will obviously get too hot. And don't do it on a brand new engine. You need water in a brand new engine to keep the temperatures sensible. Okay, so questions coming in thick and fast. Harvey Price, hi again. Currently tuning a downdraft progressive twin choke Weber on a Mark II Golf. Don't mean to swear at you. But what Lambda do you class as bore wash rich? I've got 2/3 up to about 0.85 to 0.95. Well, it's a sliding scale. Bore wash rich is anything over maximum power fueling. All right. So, and what you have to remember is the more fuel you put in an engine after suppressing misfire is waste. Okay. So, and this is on part throttle. So, what you have to remember is at full power, you need safe full power fueling. So, you know, 0.85 is good because you're not there very often. You know, you're only there for a brief interlude while you're accelerating the car. But when you're cruising, then you want it as lean as you can ignite and fire nicely, all right, without any misfires. Thomas Classic and Modern. Yep, as always, I'm sure you guys reiterate constantly, the first startup is so crucial to a good start in life for any engine. We managed to knock the mixture screws back to get it to one lander, for its first. Yeah, okay. And that's the point. And that's why you have the appropriate kit on hand when you're starting an engine for the first time to get that fueling right.
Well, also the fueling changes a little bit as time goes on. So, you know, you don't want to run a fresh engine on its, you know, maximum fueling. You want to keep it a bit lean while it breaks in and then, you know, slowly feed it extra fuel as it, you know, ready for it.
Okay, so Minimat TV says, thanks for the advice. I understand it's on the edge of a single plate and could limit the upping of the boost if I wanted. Yeah, if you're running £7.5, £8 of boost, I think you're fine. If you start pushing it up to 14, I think you're going to have a problem. Yeah, so that's what you got to remember. Fry 998, yes, thank you there. Points out it's Damico Engineering near Snetterton. Thank you for that. I forgot the name. Okay. M Gracer 87. Have you any advice on using a decompression plate on a very skimmed head to get the CR to a reasonable level? It's a good modified head, otherwise it's a 1275. Right, it's a 1275 A series in line. Right. So heavily skimmed head might have a very thin deck. So I don't often advise using heads with very thin decks because gaskets can leak. And then you're talking about using well, we used to call them a very rude word, which I'm not going to say. Something plate, we used to call them, which I'm I'm not going to say the rude word because we don't like using 2 air gaskets in one of those plates. It's not a good engineering solution. So if your head's been skimmed a lot and it's thin, it's going to have a problem. Okay. So the best way to do it is to use, dish pistons and things like that. If you've got very small chambers, then, is it the right head to be using? That's what you got to ask yourself. All right. So engines always run best when the head's properly modified and it's got a nice thick cut deck. And it will seal properly to the engine and fuel it properly and all the rest of it. Clint Ford, clutch plates. My Verto clutch kit, Borg and Beck, came with a smooth plate. That's unusual. But I've seen originals has grooves. Just show me that offline, Clint. I'm not quite sure what you mean, whether it's the friction material or it's the actual metal that the plate's made out of. So maybe just send me a picture after this, and I'll see if I can answer your question. Okay, GTE channel. Do you think that in the mini world there is a little attention to the need for oil of high zinc content to prolong cam life? Yeah, a little bit, and the reason is because it's generally not been that much of a problem on A series engines for most people, apart from those that have been using high lift rockers. But even zinc is not going to solve that problem. So the A series is quite good at splashing lots of oil up from the transverse gearbox all over its cam lobes. And then a lot of aftermarket cams are cross drilled, like my billet ones are cross drilled. So there's loads of oil about, and they're always getting a good supply of oil. So, but I do think you're correct. High zinc oil is one that will definitely improve a lot of people's relationship with an A series.
Yeah, to me, it seems silly that it's the thing. It's like either buy the classic oil with the zinc in it or put the additive in to whatever oil you want to use. But it's just like a non-issue.
Yeah.
But I think that as new owners come into this hobby and get these cars, they may not know about the flat cam problem and they just use regular oil, and yeah, they'll have a problem. So I do think it is becoming an issue, but as AC said, that there's tons of oil being splashed around anyway. So how much cam life are we talking about? Losing by running the wrong oil, especially on a used tired engine.
Okay, so the GT channel. Do you think? Oh, did I just get the right one there? Yeah. Do you think that in the mini? Sorry, beg your pardon, I'm reading the wrong one. Ovini, changing the carb needle impacts the timing. Yeah, because if you've got too much timing and you then change the carb needle and your fueling goes up to the optimum, your cylinder pressure goes up. So then you might run into pinking and engine knock. So yes, it can affect the timing. Quite often when people come into me, it's like, oh, the car's not been running well, so I've adjusted the timing. And you look at the timing set and it's well advanced. And the engine's still running because the engine's not getting any fuel. So it can't develop any cylinder pressure. So they're kind of turning the dizzy in vain hope that will make the engine run better. But in reality, I might retard it 20 degrees, change the needle, and the thing wakes up, So absolutely, the carb needle does affect timing in certain circumstances. William Jones, hi. How low should the fuel sit in the jet from the bridge? And also, any difference between HS2 jets and HS4 jets, non-wax that, except the colour? Can I use a HS2 jet in a HS4? If it's well, that's an interesting question. I build carburetors, and I don't know that question because I've never done it. I've always used the appropriate one, so I haven't got two jets that I could compare side to side to see if they're actually the same. If you think about it, they might be the same, and they might not. So I'm not sure on the length of the actual jet itself. So the point is, what you need to do, it's something I never bothered to even look at. So if you're worried about the height of the fuel, right, don't worry. It's something you don't need to be concerning yourself with. What you need to concern yourself with is the height of the float in the chamber. Okay, so make sure that your float, okay, when it's sitting, I've got the body, but yeah, a 4 mil. I set mine up so there's a 4 mil drill between the float and the rim of the float lid. Okay, and if it's nearly touching the lid, there's your problem. So change that float to the new stay up type, which is adjustable, and you can bend it to the right size, the right setting. So if you excuse me, I'll just go and get one because I've got some in stock, and I'll show you what I mean. You just take over for a minute, Darren.
Yeah, we've had this question come up before about possibly changing the jets, and I'm with AC. I've yet to switch from an HS4 jet into an HS2 jet, just because I can just make the jet that is designed for the carb to work properly. Yeah, I just never tried to do it. But if you're thinking about switching to, say, a wax jet from a fixed jet, I would encourage that because you get temperature compensation that comes with a wax jet or a wax set system.
Yeah, just on that aspect, there's a lot of people that always change, get rid of the wax set because they're crap, right? Wrong. I've never ever had a problem with a wax jet. Okay, all my carburetors come with wax jets, right, apart from the HS2s because they would never fit with them. So all HS4s come with a wax jet, and the reason for it is there's temperature compensating, which is what Darren was saying earlier. You need the temperature compensation to maintain the right air fuel ratio during the day. So I don't subscribe to the to changing it to a fixed jet. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's the stay up float kit. There's the part number, and inside there is a black float, and it has got a metal arm, which and then you can bend the float on to give you the height you want. That's what you want in a HS4 or HS2 if you can't get the right float height setting.
Yeah, and if you go about changing your float settings, you'll have to readjust your carburetor settings because the float level affects everything about how the carburetor operates.
Yeah, so set your float height first, then you calibrate the carb. Siemens Sam, Miller's Oils Classic Oil 2050 made in Yorkshire, like the tea. Take some beating. Since the needle changes the timing, what should be made first, the carb tuning or the timing? Always set the timing first, yeah? Then you set the fueling because timing affects the fueling. And then once you've got the fueling right, you go back and make sure that the timing's optimized, okay? And you can only do that step by doing it on the rolling road or, being able to measure the power, all right? A lot of people think, tuning is digital. You just do this, just do that, and it's done. No. That gets you 90% of the way there. To get that last 10%, that's where the dialing in takes and the time comes in.
Yeah, and like Troy, I think he might still be in chat. Troy Powell, he did a dyno session after he did all the tuning work.
Yeah.
And ended up pulling timing back by, I don't know, 2 or 3 degrees, and he got like 10 more horsepower out of his engine or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pays to test it.
Absolutely. Steve Crook, on my 998 automatic, most people recommend using a 1040 engine oil as the best for auto clutches. Do you agree? As recommend 2050 for engines? No, you use the thinner oil on the autos because the transmission will work better with the thinner oil. Thanks, Clint. He sent me some pictures. So Troy Powers just said yes as well. So he's backed up what you said. We're still at 51 people and 49 likes. That's excellent.
Yeah, very good.
If any of those people are in the chat that haven't liked us, please give us a like. That'll be excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Troy, what power output did you end up getting on your motor after the dyno session? I think it was like 10 horsepower or something change.
We're running out of questions. We've been going very fast this evening and keeping up with them, which is unusual. 53 likes. Thank you very much.
So I've noticed that whenever I have to deal with oil, anything I buy nowadays says classic written on it. The Valvoline has a special racing version, which they sell for the classics, and Castrol has the same thing. They have the classic. So whatever it is, it's usually labeled for classic vehicles.
Yeah.
And the reason the zinc got taken out is for catalytic converters. The zinc would cause damage to the chemistry of the cats. So modern oils don't have it for that reason.
Troy Powell says only 56 at the crank. That's quite low, Troy, but we talked about that. So, any other questions, or have we dried up? We dried it up. Darren Robert Shaw, will you be announcing the launch of the HIF44 here in YouTube, or just keep an eye on mini spares? I think I will probably announce the launch of it on Facebook or my Facebook page, but it will be featured on here at some point, because what I'll do is I'll have one and then I'll bring it on the live chat so people can see it and what's in the box. I'll do an opening.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll try and see if I can finalise the price as well, but that might not be yet. It clearly it will be a little bit more expensive than a current SU is now, but it has to be because it's going to have more things in the box, okay, than you get when you buy a current one. So, but my aim is to be not hundreds of pounds more, So we will do what we can on the price to make sure it's sensible.
Yeah, and honestly, it's built to spec from the manufacturer. So, you can't ask for any better.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm very lucky that they're going to do it. So, I think it's a great opportunity for people to buy a brand new carb that's at ACDodd spec straight off the shelf. But we will just see. Thomas Classic Modern. We use Valvoline VR1 as a go-to oil. Good zinc properties. Yeah, absolutely, Ross.
Same.
Very, very sensible oil. Young, conical valve springs. What's your view? Yes. It's the way forward. There's no argument with conical valve springs or beehives. They're better than straight ones. Absolutely. Darren Robert Shaw, do you need anyone to try one? People want freebies. I don't need anybody to try them because I know they will work. But I like your style.
Hopefully, the first person who buys it will be part of tuning day. That'd be cool.
Oh, Troy Powell's just said 56 at the wheels, not the crank. Okay, fine. All right, 56 at the wheels. Okay, but I still think that's a little bit low for that spec, but we'll talk about it offline if you want at some point. But the point is, you got a big increase by setting your timing, which is what it was all about.
Yeah.
The GTE channel, dashpot oil. One of my old cars needed regular refill more than my other minis. Could this just be because of high mileage, or could those be some underlying issue? I always love this question about it. Uses oil, right? No SU uses dashpot oil. There's a reason for if your carburetor HS carb or HIF or whatever is using oil, it's because you're checking it wrong. So every time you remove the damper out of an SU, you remove the oil. So if you do that 3 times, there's no oil left. So stop checking it every day. And when you want to check the oil in the dashpot, you undo the damper, and you don't remove it. You just move it to one side and look in. Okay, that's it, and then screw it back down. You don't take it out.
Yeah, it's not much oil in there.
Yeah. R Young, HIF6 Virtues HIS 44. I think I've seen one with a HS6 dashpot damper on it. Usable. Right, okay. So the HIF6 is absolutely fine. It will work the same. Doesn't necessarily have ball bearing suction chamber and all the rest of it, but the point is the carb will work fine and it will calibrate up fine. As long as it's not necessarily aimed at a bigger engine, because some of the bigger engine ones have interesting grooves cut in the piston and all sorts of things. So just be careful that it's that it's meant for a smaller engine. That's really the case. The SU made a lot of different carbs, and just because it was an HIF6, don't assume it's a one for a small engine. So just make sure it's not got extra air passages and things in it to make the needle less sensitive.
Yeah, in fact, there's a good point because I took a HIF4 off of my my new project car, and it had all those grooves and stuff, and the car ran really strangely on it. Now there were air leaks and other things that I had to deal with later on, but that was one of the things I first replaced was the carb because it was just all wrong and backwards. It was the wrong handed side, like it was just a mess. Like I like the idea of having the HIF on it, but it was clearly pulled from just a scrap heap and stuck on the car.
Interesting question from Andy. What tools and equipment do you use in your workshops? Well, I haven't got the whole evening to tell you that. I've got loads. But and what would you like that you haven't got? I'd like to replace my press because it's leaking. So I need a new press.
A lathe, a press.
Yeah.
Another shop. Yeah, just give me another shop full of tools. That'd be better.
So if I'll answer your question for you a bit better than I have, Andy. If I just limit, I mean, I've got the usual spanners and power tools and all sorts of bits and pieces, but if we talk about machine tools, I've got 2 pillar drills. I've got a milling machine with a 49-inch table. I've also got a Colchester round-head lathe 1959 machine, and I've also got a what we're talking about, boring machine, Van Norman 944 boring machine. In fact, if you look at my early videos, there's a section on my machine tools. You can have a look and see what's in my workshop.
Yeah, I haven't got any of the machining equipment that I need. Not enough space.
The GTE channel, that's an interesting take. I didn't check it that often, but I understand what you mean. Talking about like you removing the oil when you're checking. Okay, so we've got 57 likes. We've got 48 people still in the chat room. We're coming up to an hour and 3/4, so we're not doing too bad. I think the numbers are coming down, or they're going up. They've gone up again. So, okay. Demi-quad FPV. I just wanted to say great to Darren going over the breather systems and telling people the rocker cover cap is a service item. There's one for your video. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I made the video. It's like I got tired of seeing it wrong all the time. Like the breathers are always open, and the cap was, I find them with screws stuck in them, or glued shut. It's like, this is not how the system works. And
Yeah.
when it's working, it works really well, and it keeps everything just happy. Like it keeps the fumes in the engine and keeps them burned. Like, why would you not want to have it hooked up? Unless you're racing or something, just hook up the system.
Yeah. Yeah, people get hooked up, I need the vent breathers on it and all the rest of it. It's like, it becomes very unpleasant to drive if you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I know if you have too many breathers to hook up, it gets kind of fussy because you have to have a bunch of Y's and T's to make it all hook up properly. But at the end of the day, it needs to be done, and it just makes the oil seals last longer. Like to me, I see no reason not to run it.
Yeah.
And that's why I made the video. Hopefully, it wasn't too many cuts and jumps. I had a lot to talk about.
Young, rebushing HS carb spindles. Can you add rubber bushes like HIF carb? No. Although people have taken it into their own. I was just reading Ross Thomas's comment. I'll get to that in a minute. Sorry. Young, rebushing HS carb spindles. Okay. No, you can't add the HIF type seals to the HS. But what people have been doing is they cut down valve stem seals and they press them in place. Other people I've seen machine the throttle shaft for a very small O-ring and then position that such that it's just nipped inside of the bushing. So to me, it's all hard work, and I'd just put an HIF carb on it. I think if I needed that.
Yeah, I fitted a large rubber cap over my HS throttle shaft. It went over the whole cap and the carb and everything. Just stuck it on the side. I'll grab it here.
While he's gone, I'll just read out Thomas Classic Modern statements. If you can hear me, Darren, he says, Darren, don't listen to AC about tools! ! He'll persuade you to buy lathes, boring bars and mills, and then you'll wonder how you survive without them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a I have a distributor machine in my basement now because of AC.
But you have a very good distributor. You have one of the only ones in the world which you can do very fast modifications on a Dizzy and see instant results. So that's a good thing. And there's another one that's now in existence over in up near Colchester.
Very cool. Yeah, it's absolutely worth having. But I know what you mean, Ross. So what I was talking about is I use one of these little rubber caps on one of my HS4 carbs, just because it doesn't have any way of sealing it properly. But that's an alternative way of doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so Dean Cook, why does a breather run to the brake servo hose? It doesn't. So if it does on yours, you've got a problem. So the brake servo hose goes into the manifold, all right? So you've got manifold vacuum. And then the breather goes into a carburetor port, okay? So this carburetor port, which I showed earlier, I know this is not a mini carb, but the port is the same. So that port there is the breather port. That is not used for servo vacuum.
Yeah, servo always has to be off the manifold.
Absolutely.
It's the only way to get enough vacuum on it.
Okay. Young, what's the turnaround time for you rebushing twin HS2s, or are you overloaded at the moment? I can make an exception for carburetors. So if you want them done, probably about 2 weeks. LR180, ACDodd is the man. Well, thank you very much for that.
He really is. Yeah, finding good knowledge on SUs and tuning is very hard to come by. There's so much bad information or old information that's no longer valid, and it's very difficult. That's why I reached out to AC to get trained.
Yeah, well, thanks for that endorsement. You're absolutely right, though. There's a lot of misinformation, and that's one of the reasons why I said at the beginning of this live chat that one of the things I'm going to do in the future, and hopefully the near future, is to make a video, like a deep dive on how the SU works. Okay, so I'll just need to wait till I'm surrounded by the appropriate shiny SUs, and then we'll go through the process of explaining to people how they work. And I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, whether I'll do a sort of a deep dive on how they work, or if I take each SU and then go through how they work. I'll think about it. What else have we got? Anybody else got any questions? Thanks, I'll PM you. Yeah, no problem. You're also, by the way, if you send them to me for rebushing, you'll get custom bushes. I'll stop using the ones from the main supplier at the moment because there's too much slack in them. So all the ones we're doing at the moment are having custom made bushes, which are in terms of snug fit.
Well, they have to be line reamed to fit. So
yeah,
they're done at the same time together to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a big batch of bushings recently, and I had a small box where I just had to grade them on sizes, how many over thousands they were, because there was such a mess of tolerances that I couldn't use any single one just randomly out of the box.
Yeah.
I have the tightest tolerances ones for the HS2 builds, and I have the worst ones for the HIFs. But again, ideally you just have good tolerances on everything. But if all you can do is press them in, then you're limited to what you can buy from a supplier. And that's why you need to have a lathe to make your own bushings.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So it looks like we started to slow down with the questions. So it might be that we start thinking about wrapping up, Darren.
Very well.
That's all right. Is there any more questions coming through from people? We're going to wrap it up at 10 o'clock anyway, but we'll wrap it up a little bit earlier if we haven't got any more questions. Stevie,
yeah,
baby,
I always ask,
he's asking you if
yeah.
you got a mini behind you.
Yeah, that's a nice road racer there.
Yeah. And then the other side?
Yeah, the 71 Canadian market car there. So
Nice.
Yeah, I always ask people to comment about things that they want to see in future videos.
Your voice has gone funny again with the echo. Do you want to drop out and come back in?
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
Okay. Okay, so Darren will be with us shortly. He's just coming back in. Okay, so that's better. Yeah, okay, excellent. So Darren Robert Shaw, any drivability compromises with having a flywheel lightened and balanced? Depends how lightened, but the ones I do, no, it's only an improvement. But what engine size have you got? So going too light on a 998 is not necessarily as fun as you might think. But it certainly makes a huge difference to a 1275. So absolutely recommended. Stevie baby, yeah, classic mini, love it.
That's a good one. It's got the navy interior. Very short-lived production color.
Okay, Adrian Shaw. When I connect the vacuum advance, the static increases. Okay. Does your mod of the vacuum takeoff on the carb fix this? Yes. That's what ported vacuum's all about. You basically take the vacuum signal away from the vacuum unit when the engine's idling, and it comes back when you open the throttle and uncover the port. That's the whole point of ported vacuum. Dave Huddleston, is Dean Cook looking at the anti-run-on valve like the MG Metro had fitted in the servo vacuum pipe? I don't think so, because he was referring it to the breather, and I think he was getting confused with the breather, or there was something wrong with his car where his breathers were connected to the servo pipe, or the servo pipe was connected to the breather.
Yeah, I was thinking about the anti-run-on valve as well, being hooked up or not being hooked up and being, run to the carb or something weird. But yeah, it should be run straight to the manifold if it's for the servo.
Darren Robert Shaw, 1275. Yeah, absolutely recommend lightening your flywheel for a 1275. Even on a standard engine, it will make a lot of difference.
Yeah, I need to get you to do the one for this car. It's the 2-piece with the extra thick band. It's a very heavy one.
I have one behind me. I just so happen to have one. So let me just bring this over. There's nothing special about the back plate. It's very boring. But the actual flywheel, I've got the heavy one. And
Yeah,
this is a real brute. And this is off the Austin 1300. So I've been sent one of these for lightning. And I'm going to look forward to that, because that means I can get the my lathe into maximum chomping mode. Full power, remove the rim, and then take that rim off that side. I mean, this thing weighs an absolute freaking ton. Yeah. So, if you've got that on your Mini, my God, will it make a difference when you lighten that flywheel?
So I've got that, but the 2-piece. So I've got the extra bolts in the center.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. You got the 6-bolt. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. You have got a heavy flywheel. So
And yeah, it still gets 40 miles a gallon with that flywheel.
Well, I did an experiment once, and I fitted a lightened flywheel, and my engine around town went up 2 miles to the gallon. That was absolutely true.
Struggling.
All I did was change the fly 2 miles to the gallon around town, just by lightening the flywheel. Anyway, backplate wise, I don't recommend you lighten these at all. All right, so just reface these and leave them standard, because they're nice and thick and they don't bend, and you get plenty of grip. Okay, okay. How much is too light? Okay, so if you take a standard flywheel, like the one I just held up, and you 3/8 of an inch, 9.5 mil thick through the little holes that are in the flywheel is about as minimum as you want. If you buy a steel flywheel, they're about a pound lighter than that. Just use the road steel flywheel, because any flywheel that gets too thin, just so happen that I have so take note. That's a thin one. All right. So this is a racing part. This wasn't used on a racing car. This was a road car. Right. Destroyed, overheated. Right. Because there's nowhere for the heat to go. All right. It was also bending and not gripping. So absolutely ridiculously too light. Okay. So just remember that. On a road car, you want thick, heavy components that have been sensibly lightened, not wasted down tiny little thin things that overheat and, you wreck. It's amazing what I've got just behind me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd probably be good for doing Le Mans where you're in one gear the entire time for hours on end.
Yeah, but if you're on a road car and you're doing hill starts, you're just going to wreck that. That's absolutely no. And this is what people do. They build a road engine. They put, right, I want ultimate light flywheel. I want machine crank, and it's like, thing's useless. Right, if you want a road car, you need to build it with road car parts, okay? And you need to build it to the specification that it will work properly. So you need some meat on your flywheel to actually soak up some of that heat, okay? And you also need meat on your flywheel so it doesn't bend in operation, right? If you put an orange diaphragm on that, that bends, okay? And you lose 10, 15 foot-pounds. If you put an a grey diaphragm on it, it bends even more. So you lose a lot of your clamping force. All right. So, you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. These are too thin for a lot of the applications that people use them for. And really, these should be used in applications where when it does that, you just bin it and buy another one. These are disposable. Okay. They're not something you put in and last 100,000 miles. All right. 100,000 seconds is more like it. Okay. Doesn't matter who makes these, all right? If they make them that size, they ain't going to work long in a road car. Racing is different, and it's not road. It doesn't have the same loads as you get on a road car.
Yeah, they also have different budgets.
Yeah, yeah, and that service item. You know, I build clutches for people who race. They don't care when it goes wrong. They just service item. Stevie, baby, I used to live next to the Austin factory. Ah, nice.
That must have been an interesting view.
Okay, anyway, we're coming up to the last couple of minutes now. So we've still got 40 online. This is fantastic tonight. That's really good. Thanks for the likes, by the way. We've got 58 up there. So any of you that haven't given us a like, if you could push that like button, that would be excellent. I think in the last minute now, I'll just start to round up. Is there anything you want to say, Darren, before we go?
Just to reiterate, just let us know things you want to see, topics, conversation, etc. Either for future live chats or for anything we could produce video-wise. That would be great.
Okay, so in the comments under this video, on when it gets posted, then please leave a comment and we'll read those and see what we come up with. I see Ross has just put there, the minefield that is clutches. Absolutely. Yeah. And I have to thank actually Ross, because it's Ross that made me go through and sort out some decent clutches for his business, because he was having problems a few years ago. So it's Ross that made me look into these and actually come up with some decent clutches, including looking at some of the RTS stuff as well. And the rest, and the other person, of course, is Elliot Stringer, regarding the RTS stuff. So I can only thank Ross for that, because he made me basically make him a clutch that works. All right, one last question before we go. Adrian Shaw, if a HIF 44 dashpot drop time is quicker than 5 seconds, does it matter? Not on a Mini. Not on a small engine. It might matter on a bigger engine, but on a Mini, it's fine. Okay. Anyway, I think I'll round it off there tonight. That's we've just done over 2 hours, so that's fantastic. Ross says, "Yep, thanks for taking the time of these streams. Much appreciated." Thanks, Ross. No problem. And I'll look forward to join. We'll talk to you about when we're having the next one, and we'll look forward to getting you on. As for everyone else, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for giving us 60 likes. That's fantastic. Hopefully everybody else that watches this when it's recorded later on obviously likes it and leaves a comment. So as ever, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys later.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye-bye.